there are so many waivers that our hospitals have to apply for because the regulations were written 40 years ago, and then it's simply addendums or whatever. And these hospitals and doctors and dentists, everybody's applying for waivers for different things. And I said, and a lot of times the two departments aren't talking to one another either. When you go into a hospital and they're saying, well, it depends on where or who's coming, where we put the fire extinguisher, because we get written up if it's here by one, and if it's they just, and it's a lot of stuff that's like that. And they said that they were committed to rewriting the regulations. And I said, you guys need to start with the things that you're getting the most requests for waivers on, because that's where the biggest bang for the buck is. And we also need to have you guys talking to each other and coming out and dealing with hospitals and doctors' offices across the state, even from one county to another in the 7 that I serve. Center County, they've got 3 hospitals in the State College area, and I've got poor Bradford is about, or they're on the verge of losing their hospital, and they've just got a new hospital in State College. So even in the rural part of Pennsylvania, there are distinctions, and they're going to have to go in and talk to people all across the 67 counties, so that when they're designing something, they design the regulations so that it can be, it can have the intent of what they're trying to do without creating a burden that stymies the ability for the doctors to spend the time that they need with their patients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and that's part of innovation. You know, one of the lessons learned, going back to the question that you asked me just a little bit ago of lessons learned, it's one of those things that as we think about innovating and, you know, framing for the future, a question that I like to ask rural hospital leaders or rural healthcare leaders is, what regulation needs to change? What regulations are stifling innovation? You'd be surprised how hard it is for healthcare leaders to actually envision a new paradigm, because they're so steeped in the reality of their daily existence. Because it's a question that I've asked. It's like, if we're going to rewrite or redesign, reimagine rural healthcare, I firmly believe we have to do so through a lens of what do we want. I like to call it the white piece of paper exercise. Let's envision what we think it should be, and then layer into it the regulation that we think needs to be there to make it safe and effective. But what happens because of the election cycle, and you know, you all know this, is like all of this takes a lot of time, and so what you end up have happening is piecemeal, because we don't have the luxury of time to go back in or to step back and say, what should we have and how do we fit regulation for the future, versus just trying to adapt and tweak what we already have to make it fit. And so I think that's why we find ourselves then in this waiver, because we're trying to be innovative, but the regulation is actually stifling our ability to do that. And we have a hard time because we function in the reality of our day to day, to actually even imagine what I could do if I didn't have this regulatory barrier or framework to work around.